not very well known in Buddhism is that when you practice, you have to smile. Just about everybody that does any kind of meditation, they wind up with deep lines in their face, and when they're meditating, they try hard. And what I've found over the years is you can have a lot of blockages and hindrances arise when you're trying to push it, when you're trying too hard. When you smile, you have a tendency to lighten your mind. When your mind gets lighter, your mindfulness gets sharper. It's a real interesting thing that the Buddha, in the suttas, the mindfulness of breathing is only mentioned 8 times in all of the suttas. And it's mentioned many thousands of times to do loving kindness. But it seems that the breath seems that it's the one that everybody starts with. And it's not really near as much fun as it is to do loving kindness. The thing with loving kindness is you can carry your meditation with you when you go out and do your daily activities. When you're walking from here to there, you can start radiating loving kindness. It's real interesting to... I went to a conference on mindfulness. And after a day and a half of everybody listening to people talk about mindfulness, when I got up and started giving a talk, I asked people the definition of mindfulness. If you've been listening for a day and a half, all these different speakers about mindfulness, can anybody tell me what it is? And she just looked it up on her telephone. Mindfulness. The act of being mindful. Does that tell you anything? That's a word that you're supposed to know, right? But that doesn't give you a definition. So I'm going to give you a definition. Mindfulness is remembering to observe how mind's attention moves from one thing to another. Now, when you observe how things move from one thing to another, your mind is with your object of meditation, whatever that happens to be, and it gets distracted. How did that happen? It didn't just all of a sudden jump over there. There is a process that you get to see when your mindfulness is sharp. What happened first? What happened next? What happened next? How does that process actually work? And that helps you to understand more and more clearly what the Buddha was talking about when he was describing the links of dependent origination. So mindfulness is an observation power. And it's very much necessary. Now, when everybody starts doing meditation, they start with their object of meditation. Okay, it's either the breath or loving kindness, whatever. And your mind gets distracted. What do you do when your mind gets distracted? Well, you recognize it and you let it go and come back, right? But that's not what the Buddha taught. Okay. The Buddha taught right effort. Now, right effort is recognizing when something is unwholesome. What is unwholesome? Always, unwholesome means taking something personally. I am that. I hate it when my mind gets distracted. I. That is unwholesome. Release that distraction. Now you release the distraction by not keeping your attention on it. I know there are some people that when they're talking about doing the practice, they're told to note it until it changes and goes away. That's not right effort. Right effort is letting it be right there. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't keep your attention on it. Now, there is tension and tightness that arises in your head and in your body. Relax that tightness. Now, you have a membrane that goes around your brain, right? It's called the meninges. Every time you have a thought, every time there is a feeling, every time there is a sensation, your brain expands a little bit. There's movement. And that causes tension and tightness to arise in your head. It's not big. It's actually a little bit on the subtle side. So when you have a distracting thought, you don't keep your attention on it, but it still causes this tightness in your head, in your mind. So you relax. And then you bring up something wholesome. What is wholesome? Smile. And that helps your mindfulness, it improves your mindfulness a lot, and it helps your mind to be lighter. And then you bring that light, happy mind back to your object of meditation. And stay with your object of meditation for as long as you can. That is the instructions in the meditation. The Buddha.
Is that like the inner smile meditation are you talking about? Is that?
No, I'm not talking about inner smile only. I'm talking about smiling. The Buddha, when you see Buddha images, they always has a little smile on his lips. Okay. The corners of your mouth are real important. And this is, they've tested this stuff a lot in colleges and stuff. When the corners of your mouth go up, so does your mental state. When the corners of your mouth go down, so does your mental state. So you put a little smile on your lips. You smile in your mind, of course. You smile with your eyes, even when you have your eyes closed. That lets go of a lot of tension. And you smile in your heart. So, the more you smile, the more uplifted your mind becomes. The more uplifted your mind becomes, the more you start to experience joy arising. Now there's 5 different kinds of joy. 3 kinds of joy, they happen for anybody at any time when conditions are right. The first kind of joy you've all experienced is goosebumps. It's a little happy feeling, and it's nice. And then it fades away fairly quickly. The next kind of joy is like a flash of lightning. It's a real strong feeling of joy, but it's there for a short time and then it goes away. The next kind of joy lasts a little bit longer. It's like standing in the ocean and you just have a wave of joy come over you. and then another wave will come over you. Now, these three kinds of joy, as I said, can happen to anybody at any time when the conditions are right. The next two kinds of joy only arise through mental development. The next kind of joy is called uplifting joy. When this kind of joy arises, it has some excitement in it, and you feel very light in your mind and light in your body. It's quite nice. The last kind of joy is called all-pervading joy. And it doesn't have quite the excitement in it. It's more of a contented kind of joyful feeling. But it is very nice. And this is the awakening factor of joy. Now, when you are sitting in meditation, and you're with your object of meditation, and your mind starts to pull away. If your mindfulness is sharp, you'll start to see it. And then you're caught. You're thinking about something else. Okay? As soon as you recognize that you're caught, you're thinking about something else, even if you're in mid-sentence, let it go. Relax, smile, come back to your object of meditation, and stay with your object of meditation. As you do this over and over again, the mind will start to stay on your object of meditation for a longer period of time. And after staying with your object of meditation for 2 minutes, 3 minutes like this, you'll start to feel that joy come up. And the joy will be there for a period of time. And then it will fade away and you'll feel very tranquil, very much at ease, and very comfortable in your mind and in your body. And your mind is unified. It just stays on your object of meditation without much effort at all. So, when you're practicing according to the Buddha's practice, or the Buddha's teaching, when you get to this stage, you have gotten into a jhana. Jhana is a Pali word and does not mean concentration. It does not mean deep one-pointedness. The word jhana means a level of understanding. Of understanding what? Understanding how mind works. So you're sitting in meditation and your mind is pretty nice and relaxed. And then a hindrance arises and that pulls your attention away from your object of meditation. So you notice that, you let it be, you relax, smile, come back to your object of meditation. You might only stay with your object of meditation for 10 seconds, 15 seconds before your mind goes away. That's fine. The thing that you have to understand is hindrances are not the enemy to fight with. Hindrances arise because in the past you have broken a precept. What are the precepts? lust, I want it. Hatred, I don't want it. Sleepiness, dullness, restlessness, anxiety, doubt. Now, at some time in the past, you've broken one of those precepts. And that's why hindrance arises. Now, what happens when you break a precept? Let's say you say something that's not true. You tell a lie. Then your mind says very quietly, I shouldn't have said that. I made a mistake. What I said wasn't true. And you feel a little guilty. And you start taking that on as yours personally. Anytime you have a hindrance arise, at some point in your life you made a mistake, and it can be lifetimes ago, it doesn't matter, whenever it happens to arise. Now, a hindrance is the false belief in a personal self. I am that. I am that thought. I am that feeling, whatever it happens to be. When you recognize that your mind is pulled away, and you let it be there by itself, and relax. When you relax that tightness in your head, in your mind, all of a sudden, your mind is very clear. Your mind is very alert. And you bring that clear, alert mind to a smile. So your mind becomes light, and then you go to your object of meditation. If you have 50 distractions in a sitting, and 50 times you notice it, you let it be, you relax, you smile, you come back, that is a good meditation. Every time you let go and relax, it improves your mindfulness a little bit, a little tiny bit. And as you do that over and over again, your mindfulness gets stronger. You're not distracted for as long. You have a more clear mind. And you'll start to stay with your object of meditation for longer and longer periods of time. Maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute. The longer you can sit with your object of meditation without being distracted, the more likely it is for you to have joy arise. So the joy will be there for a short period of time. You'll feel like you're really starting to understand more about the meditation. And as soon as that joy arises, you go, yeah, that's why I'm meditating. This is good. Now, the joy is going to be there for a little while, and then your mind is going to get really peaceful and calm. And you're going to feel very comfortable in your mind and in your body. That is what the Buddha called happiness. You're going to be starting to also develop a little bit of balance in your mind. Not a lot, but a little bit. Now, the difference between joy and happiness. Suppose you were in the desert and you were thirsty, and in the distance you saw a green patch and there was an oasis. As you're going to that, your mind has joy in it and it's excited. Yeah, this is good. And then you go to the oasis and you jump in the water. And the water is exactly the perfect temperature. And your mind goes, ah. And so does your body. Ah. That's happiness. The joy was the excitement and happy feeling of being able to get something to drink. The happiness that the Buddha talked about is that peaceful, comfortable feeling. Just no ripples in the water at all. It just. So it's a very interesting process. The more you smile, the faster your progress becomes. Whenever I give a retreat, I always tell you on the first day of the retreat, there's 3 things I want you to do. I want you to smile. I want you to laugh. And I'll explain that in a minute. And I want you to have fun. Too many times people think meditation is supposed to be work, and you have to really try hard. But the harder you try, the more you have hindrances arise, and it turns into work. It's real important to follow what I call the 6 R's. Recognize that your mind is distracted. Release the distraction by not keeping your attention on it. Relax the tightness caused by that distraction. Re-smile. Return to your object to meditation. Repeat staying with your object of meditation as long as you can. Every time you use that relaxed step, letting go of that tension and tightness in your head and your mind, you're actually purifying your mind. I spent 12 years in Asia going to all kinds of different teachers, asking them pretty simple questions that are pretty basic, but not getting a very good answer. I said, what is craving? That's a major thing in Buddhism, right? What is it? How are you supposed to recognize craving when it arises? How do you let it go? I couldn't get any real answers. I did Burmese style meditation for 20 years. I was successful to the way they teach, but I wasn't happy with my progress. To them, I was really a very highly advanced meditator, according to their system. But I didn't feel any real personality change. And I still had a tight mind. I still had a lot of pains that still arose. I had all kinds of things like that. I didn't think it was supposed to be like that. Meditation, you're supposed to be peaceful and calm, right? Not have pain coming up in your body or your mind. I left Burma. I went to Malaysia. I ran across a monk, and I was teaching meditation at the time. And he said, I understand you teach meditation. Tell me how you do it. So I started talking to him about how I was teaching meditation. And after a while he stopped me, he said, "Sounds like you're teaching it correctly, but you're using the language of commentaries. Why don't you let these commentaries go? Commentaries are what one person thinks the Buddha was talking about, not necessarily correctly." Anyway, you let go of the commentary and just go to the teaching of the Buddha. Now I've been trying to go to the suttas a lot, but I always got caught because I went to, the main book was a commentary. It was called the Visuddhimagga. And it didn't agree with what the suttas said. So I was always going back to the commentary, and then I wouldn't get a very good answer of what I was after, but it kind of blocked me from going to the suttas and understanding what the suttas said. So when this teacher said, let go of the commentary and just read the suttas, well, I didn't have that block anymore. I was able to pick up the suttas and see what they actually said. Now, at the time, I was doing mindfulness of breathing. Okay, I was quite good at it. But I started looking in the suttas on the instructions the Buddha gave for mindfulness of breathing. And it was 4 sentences. This is the way the Buddha said you practice, okay? You understand when you take a long in-breath and when you let the long in-breath, or the breath go out. You understand when the breath is short, both in and out. It doesn't say that you put your attention on your nostril. It doesn't say you put your attention on your upper lip. It doesn't say you put your attention on your abdomen. It just says you understand when you take a long breath and when you take a short breath. That's all. It doesn't say focus only on the breath. It just says you understand. Then you start to get into the deeper instruction. And it says, he trains thus. That's how you know it's now this is the way you got to do it. And it says, on the in-breath, he experiences the entire body. On the out-breath, he experiences the entire body. Then it says, he trains thus, on the in-breath, he tranquilizes a bodily formation. On the out-breath, you tranquilize your bodily formation. Now, to me, that really set off some light bulbs in my head. That isn't the kind of instructions that I've been given for 20 years. I was always told to watch the breath and see the first part of the in-breath and then the middle of the in-breath and then the last part of the in-breath and then the pause and then do it on the out-breath in the same way. So it was like really focus hard just on the breath. It didn't mention that in the sutta. The Buddha didn't teach that. Oh, okay. What does it mean to tranquilize a bodily formation on the in-breath and tranquilize a bodily formation on the out-breath? What does that mean? Now, because I had done so much meditation, I did a 2-year retreat, I did an 8-month retreat, I did 12 3-month retreats, just on the way they told me to do it in Burma, on watching the breath. And I always had a headache. I always had tension and tightness here. And the way the Burmese were teaching us how to do this was when you were walking, you had to walk very slowly, you put your attention on your feet, and you notice each little part of the movement of your feet, and I would really get a headache then. So I was going to the teacher quite often complaining about this headache that I had. And he said, that'll go away eventually, don't worry about it. I still had it after 20 years, but okay. And I thought maybe that's what the Buddha was talking about with tranquilizing. Maybe it's this tightness in my head. And what I did was, as I was just walking from one place to another, I thought, well, I wonder what happens when I relax that tightness. And I did. I relaxed that tightness in my head, and I noticed something very peculiar. I didn't have any more thoughts. My mind was very alert and clear. So I thought, that was nice. I wonder if that's what the Buddha talked about. So I tried it again. Yeah, same thing happened again. So I tried it again. Yeah, okay. So I went up to my room. On the in-breath, I relaxed. On the out-breath, I relaxed. And I started noticing that I was going deeper than I'd ever gone before. Now, I did have good concentration. There was no getting around it. I had great concentration. But this was different. And I didn't have that tension and tightness after I relaxed. It would come back, especially if I had a thought arise or whatever. But I wound up sitting for about 2 hours, and I had gone really deep into meditation. I had good concentration. I picked up my mindfulness. That was stronger, so it was more in balance with the concentration. And I started noticing there's joy coming up, there's peaceful calm for longer and longer periods of time. This is good. So I started studying more and more in the suttas, and I found out that the Buddha was talking about tranquilizing the bodily formation. He was talking about craving and how to let it go. So when you relax that tightness in your head and your mind is clear. You don't have any more distraction. And your mind is very peaceful. And you bring that mind back to your object of meditation. And I did that for about a week. And then I went to the teacher and I said, I've got to go I found something real interesting. I've got to go do a retreat by myself. I don't want to be disturbed. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. So I told him where I was going. I went to Thailand. And I knew where there's a great cave. It was big, high overhang. It had rained, but it never rained in the cave. There was a bed somebody put there. There was running water. I mean, it's a perfect place. It was very close to a village, so I could get food. And what I wound up doing is I would get up in the morning, go out on alms round, eat the food, take a shower, and then I would sit down and start studying the suttas. And then around noon, I would put that down and I would start doing the meditation. Now, the way that I've been taught to do the meditation is you walk for an hour, you sit for an hour. So I started doing that, but as I was sitting for an hour, I wanted to sit longer because it was comfortable. And I didn't have a lot of pain coming up at all. And I just started extending. So I was sitting for 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes longer. Very comfortable, very much at ease. The equanimity started to get quite a bit stronger, so that there is really nice balance in the mind. And my mindfulness was very, very alert. And I started seeing how little things started to come up, and if they pulled my attention away, I just recognize and relax and smile and come back real quick. And after 2 weeks, it was so interesting, because every day I was learning more about the suttas and what the Buddha was saying, and I had light bulbs going off in my head. Yeah, this is it. Everything that I was experiencing, I was finding in the suttas, and it described it just like I experienced it. And after 2 weeks, I just said, I got to do more. That's all there is to it. I need to keep going. And I wound up staying there for 3 months. And it's pretty amazing how accurate the Buddha is with his descriptions of what your experience is, and how you can start to recognize the links of dependent origination when they start to come up. Now let's go back just a bit. Now you're made up of 5 things, right? The psychophysical process. You have a physical body, you have feeling. Feeling is either pleasant, painful, neither painful nor pleasant. Doesn't have anything to do with emotion. Come in.
Sorry, I got lost.
It's okay. You have perception. Perception is a part of the mind that names the feeling. If you have a pleasant feeling arise, your mind says that's pleasant. If it's a painful feeling, your mind says that's pain. You have thoughts, you have consciousness. Okay, so a feeling arises in your body, and your perception says that's painful or pleasant, whatever that feeling is. Right after feeling and perception, that's where craving begins. That's where that little tension and tightness in your head starts to occur. So if you see that feeling coming up and you relax right then, your mind stays clear. You have no distractions in your mind anymore at that time. And you're able to stay with your object of meditation for longer and longer periods of time. At first, I was staying with my object of meditation for a minute, 2 minutes, and I had joy. And the joy would fade away, and I'd feel comfortable and happy. And then as I went deeper and I started to stay with the object of meditation for longer, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, like that, then I noticed that if I was verbalizing anything in my mind, I would have a lot of tension. So I let go of verbalizing completely. Now, I let go of the mindfulness of breathing because I was interested in trying the loving kindness. And I started doing loving kindness, and I was starting to experience the expansion that happens, and just open up the heart. It's really good. After 2 or 3 sittings of being able to sit for around 5 minutes without any disturbance at all of a sudden my mind just took a dip. And no more joy. Just really, really comfortable in my mind and in my body. My mind was exceptionally clear. And I recognized that as having tranquility and equanimity in my mind and in my body. And as I was sitting there, and I was sitting for a little bit longer period of time, I noticed that I didn't feel my hands. If I put my attention on my hands, I could feel them. And as I kept going, I didn't feel an arm, or I didn't feel a leg, or I didn't feel a shoulder. And before long, the feeling of loving kindness that was in my heart moved up into my head. And I started having much deeper balance in my mind, very strong. If there was a sound that happened, the village was close enough that they would do things, and bang things and that sort of thing. But I noticed that it didn't make my mind shake at all. It's just that the sound just went right through me, easy. If there was there was ants and that sort of thing around, and they would start crawling on me, I knew that they were there, but it didn't make my mind shake. I didn't care. It was fine. So as I was reading more and more, I started noticing how the Buddha was talking about what you experience when you get into the 4th jhana. That strong equanimity, that strong balance. And he praised the 4th jhana very much. Now again, jhana does not mean concentration. When I got to the 4th jhana, and I started picking up the suttas and started reading them, I understand very, very deeply what the jhana, what the suttas were talking about. There was no confusion in my mind at all. It was really a wonderful experience. To be able, I'm understanding more and more deeply what the Buddha is talking about. So I kept on doing that and going deeper and deeper, and I was learning so much. I was teaching myself. Now, what I just talked about these 5 things, that's called the 5 aggregates. There's a sutta in here that's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And I started comparing the 4 foundations of mindfulness with the 5 aggregates, and I discovered something very amazing. they're talking about the same thing. 4 foundations of mindfulness: body, feeling, mind, mind objects. 4 foundations. 5 aggregates: body, feeling with perception, consciousness, and thoughts, which is basically mind objects. They're the same thing. Wow. Now, the way my mind works is I have a tendency to look at things in all different ways to see whether it's really true or not. And I took a couple of days just looking at all the different angles to see whether that worked, and it does. Unfortunately, I just had the middle-length sayings. I didn't have the Samyutta Nikaya. This is when this book had just come out. But when I got the Samyutta Nikaya, I looked it up, and it says in the Samyutta Nikaya that the 4 foundations and the 5 aggregates are the same thing. So it agreed. Oh, good. Great stuff. Peaceful mind. The more smiling and lighter mind became, deeper meditation. And it really does work this way. Hindrances would still arise occasionally, but when I got to the 4th jhana, I was sitting for 20 minutes without any distraction at all, and then I'd have a distraction come up. And I started figuring out, yeah, these distractions come up because my mindfulness got a little bit weak. Now I have this coming up. And I started seeing more and more closely how the hindrances actually are a help. And they are a teacher. They're teaching you where you have an attachment.